The future of Social Security, Mr. Latham, what would you support in terms of changes in Social Security? Would you raise the retirement age? Would you require means testing?
I think you have to look really, first of all, you look back when the last time we did Social Security. It was Reagan and Tip O'Neill was the speaker. And they actually sat down, got a bipartisan agreement. But in my mind, Social Security is much better shape than Medicare certainly is. But to me is a sacred promise that the government has made to seniors and those going into the system that you don't raise the retirement age. What Congressman Boswell actually has voted for in the budget would increase the payroll taxes and the age and also reduce the price index and the increases that seniors get. But I just think it's a promise that we've made to seniors, and we've got to keep that promise.
How do you make it solvent if you don't make any changes?
The best thing we can do for Social Security, for Medicare, is to get this economy going, actually have people working, paying into the system. And as long as we have uncertainty with taxes, uncertainty with regulations, that is not going to happen. And when that happens, we're going to see an explosion of economic activity in this country. And that is the best way to shore up Social Security and Medicare.
Mr. Boswell, what changes would you
Well, one of the reasons I gave you an answer is because he signed a far-wing right Northwest pledge, and so that's why he's not telling anybody to do that, but that's okay, that's his business. Social Security is not the problem, this economy, it's not the problem. Social Security is okay, it has some increasing needs. We've made adjustments over the years, we can do it again. It's got the cap on it. The guy called me today, he said, I make over $110,000, but it didn't sound much, but he said, I don't go over the 250 or whatever. But I don't pay any more on that than...
Could I just summarize it
Mr.
so we can move on? Are you saying that Social Security is just fine? Let's let it...
No, I say we have simple ways we can fix it as we need to do it. Right now, it's okay, it's working, it'll continue to work. We will be there for the future. All we have, we need to raise the caps, take the caps off. There's things that can be done, and that possibility is out there. And this gentleman, if I could have said, he doesn't pay any more than what Mr. Buffett or Mr. Gates pays.
Mr. Boswell mentioned some pledge that you signed. Do you want to
He's talking
about
about the no increase in taxes, which I did sign, and I've kept my word. Congressman Boswell signed a term limits pledge and then broke the promise. And so because you keep your word, I think it's rather interesting to criticize.
It's hard to move along with additional questions when you keep throwing out new ones.
It seemed like I heard somewhere from some of you folks that he had a pledge one time about the term limits, but my grandfather told me something like 12 years. I'll check that. You might want to check that out. But anyway, my grandfather told me one time, the thinking person allowed to change their mind, they got new information. And Iowa wouldn't fare too well if we wanted to move up to have an opportunity for Iowans to chair a committee or have a leadership position when we are a populated state of about 3 million compared to some of the big states.
I never signed a pledge. He signed a pledge.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Medicaid, because a lot of the attention in the election has been to Medicare, but in fact, there's just some discussion about the Paul Ryan budget would actually cut Medicaid more drastically, and Mitt Romney has said, let's block grant Medicaid to the states. Medicaid right now in Iowa is what a lot of people in nursing homes rely on. So what do you see as the future for Medicaid, and how do you keep it available for people who need it in nursing homes?
Well, if you talk to governors on a bipartisan basis all across this country, they will tell you, please, give us the money that you're spending today in Medicaid. Let us design our own programs for each state, because we care about our poor people as much as anybody in the federal government certainly does. What the proposal is basically to have that money plus a percentage increase each year so that the states exactly know what it's going to cost them. In the Affordable Care Act, the President's health care bill, this is a massive new unfunded mandate to the states, because you're bringing 30 million new people into Medicaid into the states, with no way of funding it.
Well, Congressman
Well,
Boswell, was that a massive new unfunded?
Well, I'll answer
mandate?
that, but, you know, Dean, you're very good about moving us along, so I want to compliment you on that. But on the Social Security piece, and I want just to finish up on that, and it may cause some more discussion. But, you know, when you've suggested that we privatize it, and I've said that in your some questionnaires, we don't want to go there. What can you imagine what would have happened in this country if we had Social Security privatized at Wall Street when we went into this recession? And I just, that's something I assume.
Mr. Latham, you
I've
deserve
never supported privatizing Social Security, and Congressman Boswell knows that.
All right, let's move on.
One last thing, you know, we can provide for you, so you can look, if you want to see it, where he asked a questionnaire that he would start putting money into the Wall Street, the investment side of it, so.
But we have to take his word tonight, though, and he says he is not in favor of that. So we have to take his word tonight at this table. Kathy?
Is Medicaid a big unfunded mandate for the states?
Well, Medicaid is very important, as you know, and I
Affordable Care
realize,
Act.
I hope our listening audience knows that when we, you know, citizens run through their resources, they go on to Medicaid. And if they're going to be in nursing home, whatever, we, you know, got a constituent just went through.
Right, but the question is, does the Affordable Care Act put an unacceptable mandate on the states, making them expand Medicaid without paying for it?
Well, I would think that this is something that the state's concerned about, but again, you know, the states, I think all of them went to the stimulus we've heard a lot of talk about.
Well, in
So-
Iowa, the governor's talking about opting out of that and not taking that exemption.
Well, he hasn't done that yet, so let's find out what he does, but I think he's probably given that consideration.
You talked about moving things along, and I must, because we want to turn to foreign policy. Robin?
Yes. As you know, some people have said that Iran may be a few months away from being nuclear capable. My question is pretty simple. Do you think the United States should use military intervention to stop Iran?
That is an extremely important question, and it's a very serious question. I think we have to work with our best ally in the region, which is Israel, who has great intelligence as to what is actually going on inside of Iran today. And when they understand that they're on the edge of getting a nuclear weapon in Iran, if they decide they need to act, we need to support them. Because we
So you-
cannot let a government like in Iran have a nuclear weapon because, number one, they will use it on Israel, and certainly, and their next goal is to destroy the United States.
So what kind of military intervention do you foresee in Iran?
Well,
Ground troops?
No. I think to reduce their capabilities, certainly, as far as building a nuclear weapon in Iran, we have capabilities, and that's why we need, with Israel, to go after those facilities where they're making the uranium and the,
Just to
and the
clarify,
bombs.
with Israel, U.S. forces with Israel, is that what you're saying?
We support them, absolutely. Now, whether that means we go in together or just in support of Israel after they have their strength.
Well, I certainly support Israel, have, and I will continue to do so, and it's very important, and some things you said I agree with, but, you know, I think what we need to do, and I think our Secretary of State's doing a pretty good job of making that happen. You know, there's sanctions on Iran, the other countries over there, if we're concerned about it, which we are, would you think they'd be a lot more concerned? Of course they are, and so they need to really tighten that down, and I think that process going on, and keep it up, but, you know, I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. I probably know more about nuclear weapons than anybody at the table, because I've actually assembled a nuclear weapon in my training years past.
But do you think military intervention should be?
Well, I think we got to gather the information, and you make those decisions based on the intelligence you gather. And I spent the allocated time on that intelligence committee in the Congress, and the background when I was a teacher at the Command General Staff College, very important matter. But I believe that other countries, if they know what's going on, we got to keep working with them.
Well, let's put a tie on it. Mr. Latham says we would assist Israel if necessary. Is that what you're saying?
We support Israel. I support Turkey. We both support
Well, then
Israel.
let's move on. Let's move on to Afghanistan.